Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Lepri of Stokastic.com, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 8 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in terms of optimal percentage for this week on FanDuel, starting at number 8 with the least optimal and at number 1 with the most optimal. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Today's video is being brought to you guys by BetMGM. We're going to be talking about a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 16 FanDuel Contenders. We begin with the quarterback position at number 8 with Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Bears in Chicago, 9,500. At number 7, we have Gardner Minshew of the Eagles going up against the Cowboys in Dallas, 6,100. At number 6, we have Big Cock Brock Purdy of the Niners going up against the Commanders at home in San Francisco, 6,900. At number 5 is where the true breakdown begins with Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles at home in Jerry's World, 7,500 on FanDuel this week, projected for 17.7 fantasy points according to our Stokastic.com projections. The team is 4th in implied point total, 25.5, 4.5 point favorites in this game against the Cowboys, 7 optimal percentage with a 4.1 boom percentage. Now, despite the fact that they are playing up against Gardner Minshew instead of Jalen Hurts, I really do believe that this game has all the makeup to be a tit-for-tat high-scoring affair. The only worry that I have about the Dallas Cowboys is that this team has become incredibly dependent on the run with the 1-2 punch of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, and thus Dak Prescott hasn't really been able to smash over the last couple of games. Now, the Eagles' run defense is incredible, so it would not shock me at all if they look to stop Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard and force Dak to throw a bunch in the game. But at the end of the day, I am a little still worried about the run-heavy nature. He is only $7,500, though, on the week. I do like this game, so I'm not telling you guys to fade Dak Prescott. I certainly will be playing Dak Prescott on FanDuel this weekend. I'm just not completely sold on the matchup. At number 4, we move to Tyler Huntley of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Atlanta Falcons at home in Baltimore, 6,700, projected for 17.4 fantasy points. They are 14th in implied point total with 20.8, tied with the Indianapolis Colts. They are 6.5 point favorites, 8.6 optimal percentage with a 4.3 boom percentage. Obviously, on paper, going up against the Atlanta Falcons is a wet dream matchup. One of, if not the easiest matchup that a quarterback can have. The problem is Tyler Huntley has yet to show up at all this season. Last season, he had some sparks when Lamar Jackson was out, but this year, he's kind of been silent. Now, he gets the Atlanta Falcons, so maybe this is the big game, so I get why we have him ranked so high here in terms of optimal percentage, but ultimately, I am not the highest on Tyler Huntley this week. At number 3, we have Mr. You Like That! Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Giants at home in Minnesota, 7,700, projected for 19.1 fantasy points, 3rd in implied point total with 26. They are 4-point favorites here up against the G-Men, 8.9 optimal percentage with a 5.1 boom percentage. I love this spot this week. I really do feel as though both of these teams' defenses are complete and utter dumpster fires. And if Daniel Jones is able to push the fucking agenda here and they're able to go and score points against the Vikings defense, this really could be the highest scoring game on the slate at home in a dome. I really do like this matchup for Kirk Cousins a ton. At number 2, we move to Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of the Chiefs, going up against the Seattle Seahawks at home in Kansas City, $9,200. That's pretty expensive. Projected for 22.8 fantasy points. First and implied point total 29.5. 10-point favorites, 9.8 optimal percentage with a 7.9 boom percentage. The Seattle Seahawks are another team that could be able to potentially push the agenda with the Chiefs to make Patrick Mahomes throw the ball a lot more. We even saw it last week with the Texans forcing overtime. So anything is possible at this point. I really do like this spot for Patrick Mahomes, but obviously, when you're paying up $9,200 and my favorite person to stack with Mahomes is Kelsey, who you also have to pay a boatload of fucking money to play, it gets a little bit difficult. And at number 1, we got Daniel Jones. I need to stop yelling because I'm a little under the weather here, of the Giants going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, $7,400 on FanDuel, projected for 19.7 fantasy points, 12th in implied point total with 22, 4-point dogs, woof, woof, 12.7 optimal percentage with a 7.2 boom percentage. I completely agree with the tools in this scenario. I love Daniel Jones this week. Again, Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins are my 2 favorite quarterbacks on FanDuel this week. I really think this game has all of the makings of potentially being a tit-for-tat high-scoring sort of fair. And when it comes to Daniel Jones, when you stack him with his wide receiver options, all of them are incredibly cheap, so you can pay up big at running back or maybe get a one-off super expensive wide receiver that we're about to be talking about. So Daniel Jones is one of my favorite plays this week, as is Kirk Cousins. Again, Kirk Cousins 7,700 and Danny Dimes 7,400. Next up, we move to the running back position, beginning at number 8 with Miles Sanders of the Eagles going up against the Cowboys in Dallas, 7,100. At 7, we have Tony Pollard of the Cowboys going up against the Eagles, 7,700. At number 6, we have Dalvin Cook of the Vikings going up against the Giants, 8,700. At number 5, we have Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots going up against the Bengals at home in Foxborough, 8,300 for Ramondre Stevenson in this game, projected for 14.4 fantasy points, 21st in implied point total. The Patriots with 19.25, tied with the Titans. 3-point dogs, 12.2 optimal percentage with a 4.5 boom percentage. Now, Ramondre Stevenson was part of the reason that the team collapsed ultimately last week up against the Raiders. For some reason, Ramondre Stevenson forgot the situation they were in, flicked the ball back to Jacoby Myers, who sailed the ball 40 yards back for Chandler Jones to put Mac Jones into a blender, stiff arm him into Middle Earth, and then we saw what happened. Stevenson, prior to that, was running train on that Raiders defense. Now, there's a big difference between the Raiders and the Bengals defense. The Raiders defense is bottom of the barrel, hot garbage, whereas the Bengals defense isn't that bad. Ultimately, though, I'm a big fan of Stevenson, even though his price tag is a little bit up there at 8,300. At number 4, we have Saquon Barkley of the Giants going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, 8,500, projected for 15.6 fantasy points, 12th in implied point total, with 22 4-point dogs, 13.7 optimal percentage with a 6.9. Very nice. I like boom percentage. Now, my Borat impression is a little bit off because, again, I am under the weather, but Saquon Barkley here looks to be in another back-to-back solid performance. He absolutely crunched the ankles of that Commanders defender late in that game. Now, the Giants got a bunch of bullshit calls in that game that led them to win, but it is what it is, and Saquon Barkley had a very solid showing there. I think he could do the exact same thing up against a not-so-hot Vikings defense, but it is important to understand that the Vikings defense isn't actually complete dick cheese against the run, but they are absolutely atrocious up against the pass. At number 3, we have Donta Foreman of the Panthers going up against the Lions at home in Carolina, 6,100. This is probably one of the most interesting running backs, or the most interesting running back, in my opinion, that we're going to talk about today. And that's because of the situation that he's in. Priced at 6,100 this week, the price tag is very solid. The problem is we've seen some big fluctuation in terms of usage for Foreman over the last couple of weeks. Some games we're seeing a lot more Chuba Hubbard. Some games Chuba Hubbard is kind of irrelevant. We're seeing Blackshear, and sometimes Blackshear isn't very relevant. It really seems like a three-headed fucking dragon backfield. And the Lions defense is looking a lot better against the run. This is kind of a scenario that I'm staying away from. I get why, because Donta Foreman's actually really good, and Sam Darnold has been turning this offense around. But at the same time, the Lions defense kind of spooks me a little. Now, I'm not saying full fade Donta Foreman, but I'm not going to bang the drum aggressively for him. Projected for 10.8 fantasy points, 16th in implied point total, 20.25, tied with the Steelers. 3-point dogs, 14.4 optimal percentage with a 3.5 boom percentage. I think he has a decent chance to have that big game. But again, crowded committee, the Lions defense a little sneaky good against the run. I'm kind of staying away. Before we move on into the rest of the running backs, then the receivers and the tight ends, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our sponsor, today's video over at BetMGM. Now, if you are a brand new user to BetMGM and you are either new to our site, Stokastic.com, or you're not new to the site, you can get, by clicking on the link in the video description, 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to a $1,000 risk-free bet when you sign up, make a deposit, and make your first wager at BetMGM. All you got to do is follow these steps. All you got to do is create a free Stokastic membership using the form down below, or log in if you already have an account. Click the large BetMGM button that appears after registering or logging in, then complete the necessary steps with BetMGM. You got to create a BetMGM account, deposit at least $10, make your first paid bet, and your bet must settle. So once your bet is either a winner or a loser or it pushes, you will qualify for your Stokastic subscription. After you have completed these steps, you'll receive an email from BetMGM Sportsbook with instructions for redeeming your 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So make sure you click on the link in the video description down below for more details and sign up now. Back on into things, we move to number 2 at running back with D-Rock Henry of the Titans going up against the Texans, 9,800. Every single time Derrick Henry plays up against one of his division rivals. This guy runs a fucking train on him. Projected for 21.2 fantasy points, 21st in implied point total, 19.25, tied with the Patriots. 3-point favorites, 24.3 optimal percentage, 21.2 boom percentage. With Malik Willis under center, the team's going to look to run the ball a lot more. They're going to look to be very dependent on Derrick Henry. I think he will show out in this spot, even though he's $9,800. It's going to be hard to get to, but if you do, go with that Giants stack. Very cheap. Weasel Derrick Henry on in there. Could look really good. At number 1, we got Christian McCaffrey, CMC of the Niners, going up against the Commanders. 9,400, projected for 21.6 fantasy points, 10th in implied point total, with 22.25, tied with the Bengals. 7-point favorites, 36.9 optimal percentage, 26.1 boom percentage here. Really like McCaffrey in the spot up against the Commanders. I know Chase Young's going to be back, and people are going to worry a little bit. At the end of the day, he's still Christian fucking McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the NFL. They have big cock Brock Purdy under center, who's going to dump the ball off roughly 7 zillion times to McCaffrey, game in and game out. I really like this spot. Again, even though Chase Young's back, people are going to get a little bit nervous. I'm not worried. I love McCaffrey. But again, the price tag is very high. Now we move to the receiver position. At number 8, we got DK Metcalf of Seattle going up against the Chiefs in Kansas City, 8,000. At number 7, we have Adam Thielen of the Vikings going up against the Giants, 6,600. At number 6, we have Wiki DJ Moore of the Panthers going up against the Lions, 7,100. At number 5, we begin with the Giants wide receivers here. Richie James, I'm Rick James, bitch, of the Giants going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, 5,200. Projected for 7.5 fantasy points. They're 12th in applied point total again with 22, 4-point dogs, 12.1 outdoor percentage, 1 boom percentage. Obviously, this is one of the cheapest wide receiver options on the week that I really like. Again, if you're stacking with Daniel Jones, I think either Richie James or Isaiah Hodgins is your best option, or you could just go and stack both of them with them. Again, the Vikings are bottom of the barrel up against the pass. Richie James has shown that he has incredibly high upside, while sadly these guys are like Walmart employees out there compared to what a lot of these teams have. I still think Richie James has enough talent to be able to be very valuable for DFS this week. At number 4, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions going up against the Panthers in Carolina at 8,400, projected for 14.5 fantasy points, 8th in implied point total with 23.25, tied with the Packers, 3-point favorites, 13.4 optimal percentage with a 7.6 boom percentage. $8,400 is a little bit expensive. Amon-Ra St. Brown is pretty boomer bust in my opinion. Now, not necessarily boomer bust in the same way that a lot of people think boomer bust, where it's like he's going to get either fucking 4 points or 30 points. Amon-Ra's probably going to get like 10 points as his floor, but his ceiling is domination, 50 Shades of Grey style with 30 plus fantasy points. The Panthers defense a little bit sneaky good. Amon-Ra is very clearly the number 1 receiver on the team, and if they are kind of unsuccessful running the ball like they've been recently, Amon-Ra St. Brown could be really solid in this spot. At number 3, we got Isaiah Hodgins of the Giants going up against the Vikings in Minnesota, 5,800, projected for 9.1 fantasy points, 12th in implied point total, 22, 4-point dog, 16.4 optimal percentage, 2.3 boom percentage. Again, I really do like this matchup out of Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins, even though Hodgins is a little bit more expensive. He was on a bit of a roll recently, hasn't been as on fire from last game up against the Commanders. Richie James was really the guy feasting there, but I think Isaiah Hodgins still has pretty similar upside. I really do think he's a talented player, and again, I love this matchup. This is going to be one of my biggest stacked games, like in terms of percentages of all the lineups I play on FanDuel. Isaiah Hodgins, the Giants, and the Vikings are going to be the highest game stack for me. Now we move to number 2, CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Eagles at home in Dallas, 8,300, projected for 13.7 fantasy points, 4th in implied point total, 25.5, 4.5-point favorite, 16.4 optimal percentage, 8.4 boom percentage. Again, I really do like this matchup as well, but I'm really perplexed at how this Cowboys offense has been working recently, and how just negative it has been for the upside of a guy like CeeDee Lamb. Again, he's still clearly the best receiver on the team. He still has a bunch of upside, but Noah Brown keeps showing up. T.Y. Hilton's going to play. They still have Gallup. They still have fucking Dalton Schultz. And with them running so much with Zeke and Tony Pollard, it's an incredibly crowded room. At number 1, we got Jay Jettas, the Gritty King. Actually, the Gritty King's Kirk Cousins, but Justin Jefferson of the Vikings going up against the Giants at home in Minnesota, 9,300. Projected for 17.7 fantasy points, 3rd in implied point total, 26, 4-point favorites, 22.9 optimal percentage, 17.9 boom percentage. Basically, anything I say about Justin Jefferson, you already know. one of the best receivers in the NFL, if not the best receiver in the NFL, with a very positive matchup. A1 steak sauce fucking matchup up against the Giants. Again, I really like the game environment, the game script here, so I'm all over Justin Jefferson. Now we close out with the tight end position at number 8 with George Kittle-me Timbers of the 49ers going up against the Commanders 7,000 at 7. Hunter Henry of the Patriots going up against the Bengals 5,000 at number 6. We have Dallas Goedert of the Eagles going up against the Cowboys. Dallas Goedert, I can never say his fucking name correctly, 6,200 in Dallas. At number 5, we have Daniel Bellinger of the Giants going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, 4,700, projected for 5.8 fantasy points, 12th in applied point total 22, 4-point dog, 7.8 optimal percentage with a 1.8 boom percentage. Bellinger is definitely not my favorite piece to be stacking with Daniel Jones. He's been quiet recently. Again, the upside's definitely there. We've seen big games out of Bellinger early on this season, but recently just been kind of silent like the night that Santa Claus comes. At number 4, we got Mark Andrews of the Ravens going up against the Falcons at home in Baltimore, 6,400. Projected for 9.7 fantasy points, 14th in applied point total, 20.5, tied with the Colts. 6.5 point favorites, 13.1 optimal percentage, 7.9 boom percentage. Again, this matchup's amazing against Atlanta. The problem is Mark Andrews hasn't done shit over the last couple of weeks. The price tag's low compared to what we're used to with Mark Andrews. But can you actually rely on him at this point? I don't think so. At number 3, we have Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys going up against the Eagles, 6,100, projected for 9.3 fantasy points, 4th in applied point total, 25.5, 13.9 optimal percentage, 8.4 boom percentage. Again, I like this spot for Schultz a ton, but Schultz has been really hit or miss, which I guess makes him a great fantasy play, because if he hits, he's going to be schmacking off the heezy, as they would say. I think he's going to potentially have a really big spot here. Dalton Schultz has been, again, kind of hit or miss, but again, this matchup is great. At number 2, we have Travis Kelce of the Chiefs going up against the Seahawks, 8,600. Projected for 14.3 fantasy points, 10-point favorites, 14.9 optimal percentage, 18.1 boom percentage. Again, great matchup up against Seattle. Very high price tag, but you pay for the excellence that comes with Kelce. And at number 1, we have Hawkinson of the Vikings going up against the Giants, 6,000. Projected for 9.9 fantasy points, 3rd in applied point total, 26, 4-point favorites, 15.4 optimal percentage, 11 boom percentage. With how shit the tight end position has really been all year long outside of Kelce, I'm going to be paying up for Hawkinson to stack him with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, or Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen. I'm a big fan of TJ Hawkinson. The Giants defense just really isn't very good, so I'm expecting a really big game out of the Viking TJ Hawkinson. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below while you're down there. Whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Again, today's video is brought to you guys by BetMGM. Check out the link in the video description. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great guys' day, and as always, good boy.